They offers they come over, they take your time, you don't want to make errors. Then what for
Nigeria, Abuja, but
Besides, you can always video call me.
Yeah, what if your battery runs out?
I've got my power bank.
All types of people take drugs. Young and the not so young. Rich and poor. I encountered personalities in this business that ordinarily I will not. If I call names, you will be shocked. Petty drug dealers are like a network of traders in a community, always available. They say I'm young. I started using drugs in 2001. I was 15 years old in SS1. I smoked cannabis, commonly known as Igbo. I was in boarding school, so my parents had no knowledge of my drug use until I graduated. Please don't blame me. I'm just trying to be myself. I don't want to be nobody else. When my parents found out, they were disappointed. They detested me, and still do till date. I was thrown out of the house. In 2005, I gained admission into the College of Education. My parents refused to sponsor me, saying if they did, I would use my school fees for drugs. I grew up in an environment filled with drugs, poverty, unemployment, and other vices. There were several cases of boys my age who used their school fees to sustain their drug use. With no hope of furthering my education, I had to survive on the streets. That was when I met Mr. Hassan, who introduced me to cannabis trade because of my popularity in the community.
Why they show yourself? You know the same. That bag is shine now. Take out now. Bro, forget that thing. Bro, that bag is shine.
I was to deliver 5,000 naira from the first sale of cannabis. But imagine, I made 15,000 naira profit in a single night on my very first day of business. It was very exciting. My popularity grew even more as Mr. Hassan introduced me to selling pills like tramadol, diazepam, rohypnol. I stopped taking cannabis and started taking the pills. Being addicted made me mix different substances to get high. I managed the pills business for him until I created a business for myself. I went from being a street smoker to a petty drug dealer to a boss of my own business. With popularity in the trade comes trouble with law enforcement agencies. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA to be precise. I was listed on their watch list. By this time, I had stepped up to selling crack cocaine and heroin. Selling crack cocaine and heroin brought more money. The business was lucrative. It took only a phone call to bring in the money, and my phone was always ringing.
How streets me? They were good. Also, no one talk. I expect that money by tomorrow. Sure. Tomorrow.
I earned so much money that I started going after women, all types of women. I even patronized sex workers. Though I had one lady I was dedicated to. No matter how a man misbehaves, he must go home to his woman. So I had a girlfriend who was the love of my life. I had 2 phone lines, of which one was strictly for business. also had a trusted cab driver that transported me anytime and anywhere I went for supplies. If the cab driver was unavailable to take me, I do not make that supply. For security purpose, I usually arrive at the trading venue several minutes before my client to monitor activities around the area, just to be sure I was not being set up. Sometimes I showed up empty-handed, leaving my boys kilometers away with the drugs. A new buyer had to prove himself by using a language that users know, or he must know the nickname of the drugs he wants to buy, like cannabis is called Igbo on the streets, or he must come with a well-known person in the neighborhood. Without meeting any of the conditions, the new buyer was considered an informant and treated as such. My bitter encounter with NDLEA in 2013 influenced my decision to stop peddling. I had no idea that my then girlfriend was an informant for the NDLEA. Prior to that time, I never had any encounter with any NDLEA officer, though I was well known by my nickname, Senator. Even when the corrupt officials sent their boys to collect tips from us, petty drug dealers, my boys handled their demands. They did not know me in person, just the name. On this fateful day, my girlfriend claimed she was sick and convinced me to stay the night with her at her place. I woke up that night craving heroin. I brought out the drug, but the pipe I usually used to smoke, we call it stem, was nowhere to be found. I suddenly remembered where I last used it. I went out to fetch it. I was about going back into the house when I heard whispers across the fence. I peeped and saw men wearing NDLEA jacket coming my direction. I needed to get away. I jumped the fence, not minding the barbed wire. Some barbed wire was found on the other side of the wall, and when I ran away, it caught my leg.
So come in. What happened? What happened?
Madam lost me.
I sustained injuries and my leg was bleeding and sore before I got to a friend's house, who lived 30 minutes away. He assisted in cleaning my wound.
So come in. You think what happened now?
I'm not drugs, I'm not drug guy.
My guys, come in.
In my girlfriend's house, I had drugs worth 500,000 naira and 32,000 naira cash. I had just made sales that night before heading to my girlfriend's place. I was to complete the money for my car with that money because it costs a lot to always transport the drugs when demands are made. I called my girlfriend with my friend's phone and she denied seeing any NDLEA officers. When I insisted I saw them, she claimed they were there for a different purpose.
What thing you saw about see some drug men around your hood?
Few kilometers from the house where I could see my girlfriend's room through the window, I called her again. I saw somebody trying to close the window, but she told me on phone that she was outside her room. I turned to walk away and heard gunshots. They asked me to stop, but I refused. I had enough evidence in my girlfriend's house that would have complicated the matter further. That day I ran for my life. I was rescued by a motorcycle rider. After that encounter, I moved to my hometown in Nasarawa State, where I maintained a low profile for 6 months. I found out one of my boys was arrested that day of the incident with the NDLEA. The thought terrified me. I promised myself to never peddle drugs again and also to stop using drugs. The life I had been living had become too dangerous and I feared for my safety. I was agitated and struggled within myself to see a worthy future. I realized what I was doing wasn't good. The profits were large, yet I did nothing useful with the money. What I have observed and learned is that drug policies mostly find it easier to target petty drug dealers. The drug barons are commonly untouchable because they buy power and often hold positions of high influence within the society and have the capacity to corrupt many along the way to achieve their goals. I was frustrated and depressed as I had lost possession of the large amount of money I once controlled. Withdrawing from drugs was another challenge. My grandparents encouraged me through the difficult journey to abstain from drug use. I thought about going back to school as this incident forced me to remember my family, orientation, and what I really wanted in life. But this seemed impossible as I thought I had lost it all. This was until I encountered Youth Rise Nigeria through one of their outreach workers in Nasarawa State. Through my determination and with the help of family and Youth Rise Nigeria, I gradually stopped using drugs. I must admit it was not easy. I did not go through any rehabilitation or detox program. Drug rehabilitation is expensive and I could not afford it. All the money I had earned through drug peddling had disappeared. I never believed hell was real until I tried stopping the use of heroin, cannabis, and other drugs. I truly saw hell. I can't actually give details of my experience as it is too painful to express. Throughout my journey of dealing and using drugs, stopping the use of drugs was the most difficult. It took me several months to overcome the psychological and emotional challenges that come with drug withdrawal effects. The process of abstinence was made worse as I had not accessed professional drug treatment. As a form of rehabilitation therapy, I would go to the Youth Rise Nigeria office when I was idle to pass time with the staff. I developed a friendship with their graphics designer and soon she taught me how to design. Over time, through several counseling sessions and advice as to what I should do with my future life, I acquired the National Certificate in Education in History and Literature. Now I work as a freelance graphic artist for Youth Rise Nigeria and other organizations. As they say, some things are better imagined than experienced. But what I have been through is an unimaginable journey from a teenager to the person I am now. Somehow, I survived an earlier chaotic existence, but in reality, many unfortunately do not have positive outcomes. If you or someone you know needs help for drug use difficulties, reach out to a professional drug treatment service close to you for advice.